Thank you for being with the Probation Oversight Commission. And we're looking forward to our meeting today. Everyone to the Probation Oversight Commission meeting. We're going to wait just a few minutes. We are expecting 2 more commissioners to join us, and so we will wait till we have quorum to get started, but thanks for being here. Welcome, everyone. We're waiting for a couple more minutes just to get quorum today. While you're waiting, I just tried the QR code on the screen. It's really great. It takes you right to the POC website. You can sign up for updates, read the 56-hour work week report, do a number of exciting things. Just hang in there with us for a couple more minutes.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Danielle. Frankie, Danielle Vappy is here as County Counsel.
Hi, Frankie.
Today.
Good morning. Hi,
Good
Danielle.
morning. Good morning, everyone.
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Janae, would you mind trying to reach out to Commissioners Canales and Lewis to see if we can get them connected? Thank you all for hanging in there. We're just waiting to have a quorum. We are expecting a quorum today. Also, Janae, I see Deputy Chief Fletcher in the participants, if you can promote her. Go. Just give us a couple more minutes.
And good afternoon. We have Commissioner Canales here with us.
Okay, great. Then we have quorum, Frankie, and you can begin.
Thank you, Wendy. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 12:05, Thursday, July 14th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the virtual meeting of the Los Angeles Probation Oversight Commission. My name is Frankie Carrillo, and I'm the chair of the commission. To start today, I would like to recognize that the Board of Supervisors proclaimed next week, July 17th through the 23rd as Probation Services Week, to recognize the public services and achievements of the people who work for the probation department. And we at the POC echo the board's appreciation of the staff of the department. Now, Wendy Julian, our executive director, will explain how those of you participating can participate today during this meeting. And then Wendy, please call the roll.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carrillo. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this meeting. And there are a lot of ways that you can participate in the meeting today. You can always send us a written comment. I'll explain more about that. We also welcome your comments live today, your oral comments. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each agenda item, and then again at the end of the meeting for items that are not on the agenda. For items that are on the agenda, Chair Carrillo will introduce the item. There will be a presentation, if any, and then we'll take public comment before the commission discusses the item so they can consider your public comment in their decisions. The best way to make a live comment during the meeting is to register beforehand and tell us you want to comment on an item. But if you're here already and you want to speak on an item that you didn't register for, please raise your hand during the item and we'll add you to the queue. The way to raise your hand depends on your device. If you're on an iOS or Android phone, you tap the three dots that say more options and then tap on the little hand icon. If you're logged in from an iPad or a tablet, tap on the smiling face for more reactions and then tap on the hand icon. Both will raise your hand. If you have any technical questions or can't find the raise your hand button, send a chat to the host and they will help you get in the queue. If you're calling in on the phone and want to make public comment, you can use the raise your hand function by pressing *3 to activate the feature. And once we call on you and you give your comment, you can press *6 to unmute yourself and then press *3 again when you're finished to lower your hand. All commenters today will have 2 minutes unless the chair determines otherwise, based on how many people are signed up for each item. And if you want to make your comment in writing, you can send it to us via email at info@poc.lacounty.gov. Janae just put that in the chat. Please don't send your public comments in the chat. Only the host sees it. And it will not be logged as public comment as the chat function does not comport with our Brown Act responsibilities. The commissioners do not see the chat. Our commission meeting today is being broadcast live on Facebook, and you can watch it there on Facebook Live, but there's no engagement with users. You can also follow our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at LA County POC for more information, and now a lot more information given our new community information officer. We also launched a YouTube account so you can see our old meetings and interesting videos and meeting recaps, and there are lots of things that will be coming on our YouTube channel. Bienvenidos a ustedes que están con nosotros hoy en esta reunión, que prefieren hacer sus comentarios públicos en español. Les daremos 4 minutos, 2 minutos para su comentario y 2 minutos para traducción. Al iniciar, nomás avísenos que prefiere hacer su comentario en español y si tiene traductor o no. Si no tiene, yo puedo traducir por ustedes. So I'm now going to call the roll. Commissioners, please unmute yourself. Commissioner Dolores Canales.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Dupuy is absent today. Commissioner Garcia-Lace.
I'm present. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson is absent today. Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Lewis is joining us today, but I don't see him yet. Janae, he's not on the participant list, yes?
Correct, he is not here yet.
We'll advise you, Chair Carrillo, when he joins the meeting. Commissioner Meredith?
I'm here, but I gotta leave at 1.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Nong?
Good afternoon, present.
Commissioner Yamashiro is absent today. So as you've heard, and Chair Carrillo,
I'm here, Wendy.
thank you. So we do have a quorum, but only for a short time. And we have at the beginning of our agenda, the items that require votes. So we will work to get through those before Commissioner Meredith needs to leave. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Now we will proceed with the remaining items for today. Item number 2 is the approval of June 23rd's minutes. Do we have any written public comments or live public comments for this item, Wendy?
No, we do not.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve June 23rd's minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Canales, seconded by Commissioner
I second it. Garcia-Lez.
Garcia-Lace. Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 3, we will discuss and take appropriate action on the Probation Department Special Enforcement Operations Unit (SEO) and the newly proposed taser usage policy and training plans. The Board of Supervisors approved the purchase of tasers for the department and require them to share the proposed policies with us before going forward with the purchase. Chief Deputy Karen Fletcher and Deputy Director Howard Wong, proceed please with your report.
Thank you. Go ahead, Karen.
Just good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present. As Howard is the Deputy Director that oversees those functions, he is going to provide the presentation, and certainly we're all available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank the Commission for having me back on this item. I received about 8 questions from the
Howard,
Commission.
your audio is pretty low. If you could.
How about now? Better?
It's pretty,
How about now?
it's hard to hear. It was better earlier. Can you try it one more time?
How about now?
That's much better.
Okay, I'm gonna be really close to the screen then. Well, I received about 8 questions from the Commission. If the Commission's okay with it, I will read the 8 questions and provide the feedback. And then after that, open up for additional questions, comments, and concerns. Will that work, Chair?
Sure, that works.
All right.
If I could add, maybe also, Howard, if you could just give a little bit of background into the department's decision to proceed with the purchase of tasers, just very briefly. And I really thank Deputy Chief Fletcher for what she said about the policy, in the sense that the Probation Oversight Commission generally does not have the role of approving the department's policies. We're only doing this today because we were specifically instructed by the board on this particular issue to do so.
Sure thing. So the department never had tasers, so this will be the first time we are getting these tools. Up and down the state, vast majority of probation departments do have tasers along with their firearms. So the taser is a less lethal option to the firearm, which is straight lethal, right? And so we had an incident a couple of years back where on the corrective action, the CAP, right, in the review, they said, hey, department, you might want to look at tasers as a less lethal option, right? Which we did, and we provided the board letter to the board, and it was approved, right? But during the board meeting, there's a read-in motion where, like Chief Fletcher and Wendy just noted, that department develop your policy, your draft policy, and your draft training plan provided to the POC and OIG for review. And then after review, 30 days after, go ahead and purchase cut the purchase order for the taser. So at this point, we have not contacted the selected vendor because then it will be a retroactive contract due to the purchase order not being cut yet, if that makes sense. I think I kind of explained this weird piece in the last time I presented. So this is where we're at. The draft policy has been presented to the POC and OIG along with the training plan. After your review, a couple of questions came up, and which I'm here to hopefully answer for the commission. That'll work. All right. First question. Under usage, the policy states that the taser should be used to facilitate a safe and effective response to situations which jeopardize the life and safety of personnel, supervised persons, and/or public based on the totality of the circumstances. Question is, what does the totality of the circumstances mean, and how are staff trained to determine when this applies? Totality of circumstances means that the conduct decisions of the deputy leading up to the use of force and all the facts known or reasonably available to the deputy at the time, right? Including the client or the probationers, any medical conditions, impairment, disability, language barrier, right? That type. So everything that has occurred leading up to the engagement, right? Or that use of force. And how are staff trained? We have staff training, right? We are trained in de-escalation, use of force options, situational use of force, right? In that draft policy, you do see on page 3, there is the situational use of force options. That's how all of our armed officers are trained, right? There's, during any kind of engagement, there's cooperative, resistive, can escalate to assaultive, high risk, and then life-threatening serious bodily injuries. And however the interaction is, that's the force from our end, basically, right? It's cooperative, everything's good. But as it raises, then the tools of the escalation raises with it. So that is the first question. The second question, tasers are only to be used when deputy can safely approach the person within operational range of the device. The question is, how do staff know it is safe to approach? The tasers have a 20-foot range, right? 25-foot range, right? And between the deputy and the client, you just got to make sure that you can actually approach, right? It's safe to approach. It's not behind walls, behind a fence, or the individual is behind bushes, right? It's, if you can deploy that taser, you need that space, that 25-foot range for it to actually make contact, right? So there's no obstructions in the way. Third question, prior to usage, staff shall give a verbal warning by saying taser, taser, taser when the situational safety allows. Question, what does situational safety allows means? What is an example of where situational safety would not allow for the safe approach or say taser, taser, taser? Situational safety applies to the safety of the environment, right? An example would be if someone is charging at me, right? And they are within arm's reach and I pull out that taser, I'm gonna not have the opportunity to say anything except deploy, right? It's based on the situation and how everything's playing out at that time. But if there is time, space, and opportunity, and if I was going to deploy that taser, that warning would be easily provided. Next question. Why isn't the standard for use foreseeable likelihood of severe injury or death in all cases? And this goes back to the third page of the policy. So for example, if the contact is in a location where there are combustible fumes, right? That taser deployment might not be ideal, right? Or if they are near a swimming pool, that taser deployment not be ideal because the folks might drown, that place might catch on fire. So it just depends on the situation and what we're dealing with at the time. Next question. Will all supervisors of the taser carrying staff be required to go through the full training? Yes. So supervisors and line staff from SEO will be going through the whole training. Next question. Apart from the creation of a SIR or use of force report, will there be any debriefing or review process available for staff after use of the taser? So on site, after each location, there is a debrief, right? Before they go to the next location. And I believe I brought this up during the SEO presentation. But yes, there will be a debrief after usage. Next question. Will mental health resources be offered to staff after discharging a taser? Mental health services are available, but by deploying the taser might not necessarily be mandatory. Last question. Will any mandatory mental health follow-up be required for staff in the event of a taser fatality? Yes. So the answer is yes. That piece will be added to the policy, but if there's a fatality due to a taser incident, the answer is yes. And those are the 8 questions, Commissioner. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comment for this item?
I believe we do. And if you'd like to give your public comment, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, I'm going back to my original agenda. Well, we didn't have any pre-registered. Is that correct, Janae?
That is correct.
Okay, great. So we'll begin with Aditi Sharakar. Aditi, we're going to put the timer up on the screen and you'll have 2 minutes. And we're going to unmute you, and then you also have to unmute yourself. It's a 2-step process now with the new update of WebEx. Okay, you can begin.
Sharakar Children's Defense Fund, California. I just want to urge the Probation Oversight Commission to take this issue very seriously. Tasers are really dangerous weapons. They can lead to lifelong injuries, even death. In 2007, the United Nations classified a taser as a tool of torture. They don't belong anywhere near youth. A few examples: in 2014, a Texas school resource officer tasered a 17-year-old in a school cafeteria. He spent 52 days in a medically induced coma and now suffers permanent brain damage. That same year in Kansas, the police tasered high school senior Bryce Masters during a traffic stop, and it caused him to go into cardiac arrest and lose oxygen to his brain for 6 to 8 minutes. Again, lifelong injuries and permanent brain damage. 18-year-old Israel Hernandez was killed by police when they tasered him for graffitiing a wall. Again, he was only 18 years old. The taser did kill him. So the presence of SEOs armed with tasers in LA halls and camps is incredibly concerning. The POC needs to do all in your power to safeguard our youth from yet another torture device in the hands of the same department that has shown time and time again their propensity to ignore use of force policies and trainings. Trainings and policies and all of that is great to say out loud, but this same department disregarded all of those when they abused OC spray, leading to the DOJ investigation and lawsuit. We know that they have circumvented their policies for use of force, for room confinement, to the point of being found unsuitable by the BSCC for these same things. So I just want to emphasize again that trainings and policies don't stop abuses, and I just don't know what would make anyone think that it'll be any different with tasers. So please do pay close attention. Thank you.
Chair Carrillo, I'm going to ask for a point of privilege and a question for Danielle Vappy. Is it acceptable for me to ask Howard and Karen to respond to that comment and then go back to public comment?
Hi, Wendy. I think that would be fine as long as
Okay.
you could continue public comment, and if anyone else wants to respond again, to allow the public comment to occur.
Excellent. Okay, so we do have some other folks signed up for public comment, and we'll go back, but I think it's really important for that question to be addressed before we move on.
Thank you very much. Just for clarity, there are no weapons in our juvenile hall worn by any of our staff. Guns are not allowed in any kind of institutions. Sheriff's deputies don't have it in county jails, nor do we. The tasers are for our SEO staff who are out in the community doing compliance checks. So it is a limited number of folks, but none of that is related to any of our juvenile institutions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'll just ask one further clarification, Chief Fletcher, and that's that we did talk at the last meeting about SEO staff being deployed to the holes, and I believe it was you that mentioned that they're checking their guns upon entering. That will also be true with tasers, yes or no?
Absolutely. Yes, that is true.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you for that. And thank you for the comments so that we could clarify that. Let's go back to public comment. If we can put the timer back on, and we'll go to Ryondell Byrne. Thanks for being here, Ryondell. You can begin. We're going to unmute you, and then you have to unmute yourself. It looks like you're good. You can start.
My connection is not bad. My name is Rondell Bourne with the Youth Justice Coalition. I've been on these probation oversight commission meetings for a while now, probably all year, and just a lot of listening in. And I remembered not the last meeting we had, but one of these meetings we had where we had extensive probation attendance, right? We had probation officers in the space talking about how they're justifying the use of these tasers. Now, we just heard what the last comment just said about tasers and how they're impaired and cause death to a youth. It's unacceptable, right? We're talking about electrocuting kids here. We're talking about using that is a weapon. We're talking about using weapons on children. And it's unfortunate that that's our last resort, right? We're talking about kids here, adults talking about kids and talking about being scared of kids and being attacked by kids. Like, there's not any other practices or any other thing that you guys can do to ensure that kids are being tamed, but without the use of that type of force. I mean, there's got to be another way, you know what I'm saying? So, like the last person said, you guys need to really relook that and rethink that. You know what I'm saying? Every time I listen to on this commission, I'm just getting more and more disappointed with just how we're going about this. You know, we're not talking about alleviating the situation. We're adding on to it. We're escalating it. We're not talking about de-escalating. That's escalation when we're using these types of things. We're causing more trauma to these kids. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all may not really care, but just think about if it was your kid or your niece or your nephew in the space getting treated like that, then how would you feel? I'm pretty sure y'all would have a different outcome and a different tone in this meeting. So really rethink that. You know what I'm saying? Rethink it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryondell. Next up, we have Krista Newble. Krista, you're unmuted. Looks like you're good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to provide clarity because I don't think the other two callers received what was said by Chief Fletcher. These tasers are not going to be used in the facilities. They are not for children. They're not for the youth. They are for SEO, which is with the adult probation side. It is not for the facilities. It's not for kids. So whatever callers that come next, just remember that before we go on this tangent about child abuse and kids and electrocuting kids. This is not for children. As Chief Fletcher said, they are not in the facilities. There's no weapons in the facilities. It is merely a safety measure, an alternative to using a weapon, and people really should look at that. But again, they are not in the facilities where there are juveniles. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. I'll wait for a moment just to see if anyone else would like to raise their hand. But seeing none, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, I'm looking at the participation bracket here. If you have a question or comment, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Commissioner Meredith, you're up.
Yes, I'm going with a clarification. This is for field deployments only, I believe. And as the term was used, it's less lethal, which means they would use it as a last resort before they'd have to use deadly force. Is that correct, Howard?
Thanks, Commissioner Meredith. That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis, you're up.
Chair Carrillo. Simple question. So the taser will be in addition to a side firearm.
Correct. It'll be an extra tool next to the firearm.
One more added question for clarity so I can better understand this. I know that probation officers are sworn peace officers, but are they also considered law enforcement?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Hi. So, first, I'm all on board with tasers as an alternative to firearms. But can you tell us when was the last time an SEO fired their firearm?
October, approximately 3 years ago.
Okay. So, my concern is that we will see taser use more frequently. I don't know, I'm just making up a once a month kind of thing. In that case, it would not be an alternative to firearms. It would be a new additional force deployment. I'm not sure exactly what the right term is. So I do think that that's something that needs to be watched and monitored to make sure that this does not end up resulting in more uses of force rather than less lethal uses of force. So I would like to ask, I guess I have to make a motion if we're going to do this. We've already got, okay, I'm not going to make a motion now. Let me just say this. We've got use of force. Actually, okay, I'm sorry. Wendy, can you tell me, the data requests we have include uses of force by the SEO, or are those? No, we've just been asking for that information about the juvenile
About the
facilities.
institutions.
Okay. Then I would like to move that we request from the department notice every time a taser is used. Yeah, let's start with that. I have one more policy question, but let's deal with that motion first, I think.
No, I'll second that, Wendy. Any discussion on this motion, commissioners?
Is there a timeline you want the notification made within?
I'm not sure what's reasonable, but it does seem like we should not leave that up forever. So, Don, do you have a better sense than I would about how long we should give them?
Well, if we're just talking about a taser deployment, I think we could probably be notified within a reasonable amount of time, no more than 24 hours. If you're talking about all the details, that's probably going to be a lot longer. Howard, do you have a thought on that?
Thanks, Don. 24, that's not too be an issue. Just for a simple notification of a taser deployment.
Okay, notification of taser deployments within 24 hours. You done?
Commissioner Lewis?
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. I just want the record to reflect that I'm opposed to issuance of tasers for a couple of reasons. One, we saw a year or two ago when the police officer mistakenly pulled their taser or their side pistol and murdered or killed someone, and when they thought it was their taser. This is just, to me, it's another. I know everybody's saying this so that it's less lethal, etc. But it also gives room for mistakes, and I know that there'll be training, etc. But I've been I experienced a couple of compliance checks lately, both with LA County and Orange County, and I've also seen it with where sheriffs are involved, and honestly, in the field, it's not a pretty sight. It's intimidating. Like I was intimidated. I'm not on probation, parole, or anything, and I literally was like, why y'all like you're coming to check on somebody who's in compliance and it's a probation check and you're kind of coming like deep. Well, we have information. Who's got information? But my point being, I'm just worried that this is like if you see a fully armed officer, probation officer in the field, I to me, it kind of looks like almost like military issue. Like it's all of this stuff. Like it's intimidating. And
Okay. Commissioner Lewis, I think your comment has been taken to heart from everyone, and I really appreciate where you stand. And I just don't want to deviate too much from the discussion that Commissioner Garcia-Leyes is bringing up about these issues that are just open for discussion. And I think the comment is well suited. And I see one more hand before maybe we move it forward to a vote, and maybe then we can take it to a different level. But Don, I see your hand is up again.
I'll just take mine in the discussion after the vote.
Okay, thank you. And I'll follow your suit because I do have a comment, but it's going to be separate from the motion right now. Any other discussions on this motion that Commissioner Garcia-Leyes has brought up about probation department notifying the POC when a taser deployment has occurred, and we are specifically requesting that it happens between a 24-hour window. Is that correct, Garcia-Leyes?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more, discussion is closed on this matter. Seeing no more hands raised. Wendy, can we have a vote on this motion?
Yes, so we are voting explicitly on the motion of Commissioner Garcia-Leyes, seconded by Chair Carrillo, regarding the request that probation provide use of force data every time a taser is deployed within 24 hours. Commissioner Canales?
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
aye.
Commissioner Meredith?
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Nong?
Aye.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, you're still in the hot seat here. I know there's other commissioners who want to just chime in on this topic. And let me jump right in before I pass it on to Commissioner Meredith. The CEOs, I'm sorry, the SEOs, you're saying this is in the field. Do they obviously also knock on doors of juveniles who are on probation? And so the questions earlier arise about institutions and dealing with juveniles who might potentially be tasered, or the parents or someone who's in the home. Can you speak to us about any training that relates to going to a home of a juvenile versus an adult?
Specifically to a home of a juvenile probationer?
I suppose, right. I assume maybe the first question is, would a SEO go to the home of a juvenile? And if so, is the training different when that's the case?
It's the same. And we rarely, I'm gonna say rarely, we don't often go to a home of a juvenile probationer unless it's a request for a warrant look or something like that. 90% of the time, 99% of the time, we are dealing with adults.
But is the training, in case there is a situation where there is even a juvenile in a home of an adult, for example, is there a specific training that is highlighted when there is a juvenile involved? Because I suppose when you go to someone's home and there's more than someone else other than the person you're looking for, it opens the scope of who you might aim at.
Right. It's all encompassed in the customer service, in the de-escalation. It's the general training that we receive. I mean, we treat everybody, right, with dignity, respect, and customer service. So it doesn't matter if it's a grandmother or a 5-year-old. It's the customer service piece.
I'm just not aware of the taser. Maybe there's a gauge on it about the voltage. So maybe I'll lean in kind of what I was thinking, if that thing would be adjusted or something, but I suppose it's not.
Not that I'm aware of. That's the piece that when we actually cut the purchase order and talk to the vendor, those are all the logistic pieces that we will be discussing and questions that will be asked.
Thank you. Commissioner Meredith? You're muted, Don.
Okay, I just rose up there for a second. A couple of things. Commissioner Lewis brought up a good point, and that there has been a couple. I only know of Bart and the one back in, I believe it was Wisconsin or Michigan, where there was a mistake in grabbing the wrong taser. And I believe one of those tasers was actually the same color as the regular firearm. Most agencies have a distinctively colored taser, either bright yellow, bright green. But one of the things I did notice in a couple of situations was the holster arrangement where the taser was versus the handgun. And I make sure that we have completely opposite sides, so they're not close to one another. That was one of my concerns. And having been trained in the military and law enforcement, I have been tased, and it is not a pleasant thing. But again, it's the last resort before having to use your deadly force, and then that's when it's there for. And I got to respect the fact that Howard's team is out dealing sometimes with some very serious people. And that the only other question I have is, do they wear body worn cameras?
Commissioner Meredith, we do not have body worn cameras.
Okay, well, twofold. One is I'd like to see the body worn cameras, and or the new tasers, if you're getting them, some of them have the cameras mounted on the taser also. That's just my thought.
Good suggestion. Commissioner Nung, you're up.
Thank you. Just a few questions. Well, one suggestion is, given the apparent sort of confusion around whether these are going to be used on youth or not, I have a suggestion on whether to specifically include in the policy that these cannot be used on youth, and whether youth under supervision, probation supervision, whether inside facilities or outside. That is one suggestion. Before we even talk about approving this. Another suggestion or a question I actually have is, you mentioned there's some other things that we've talked about that you say will happen but aren't necessarily in the policy. And so I think if someone looking at this policy, it might help to get all the different, maybe not everything, but information about, for example, that supervisors are going to be trained, that debriefs are going to happen, and maybe include some of the responsibilities of supervisors when it's specifically regarding to the use of tasers. That might be something I also, because I know you mentioned earlier on that you are going to add to the policy at least the answer to one of the questions that our wonderful staff had submitted. So that's something I would love to be considered. And then just another question with regards to the totality of circumstances. I know it's really broad, but given some of the examples you specifically gave, just disabilities, language, I think obviously like age has come up. I immediately think of mental health issues. Just wondering, with the broad range of use of force available, I imagine, but I'm not sure, that there are going to be specific circumstances, characteristics that are particularly important when it comes to the use of tasers. And so wondering, again, if that might be helpful to also include. Again, it's a broad, but maybe just including some specific things that I think are unique to the use of tasers.
Thank you for those comments.
I see Commissioner Garcia-Lays. You're up.
We can't hear you, Sean. It looks like you're muted.
All right, I think I may have been unmuted and then muted myself. So I don't have a lot of experience reviewing uses of force or anything like that, but I have a little bit. And one of the things that's come up in the discussions each time has been concerns that officers met ahead of time before writing their reports to get their story straight. I don't see anything in the policy that asks officers or that disapproves or prohibits witnesses to a use of a taser from discussing ahead of time what they're going to put in their reports. Is there something in another policy that deals with that, or is that something that's just an oversight?
In the other policies, it's, for us, it's where were you at? What did you just see? And write down what happened, what you saw. And collaborating, that, no.
Well, I mean, I think what the public is used to hearing is he was reaching for a weapon, he was charging, all these other things were the justifications, when that is actually not always what happened. And so if people, get ahead of time and say like, yeah, so I saw him, you all saw him charging at me, right? That's an indication that everybody needs to put in their reports what they saw that this person charged at them, even if that wasn't the case. So I didn't see anything in the policy that prohibits any sorts of attempts at, people protecting each other, even at the expense of telling the truth.
That one, I'm gonna have to kick over to Karen. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, sure. And I think, and I'll go back to verify what the actual language is. I don't have it at my fingertips, but there have been lots of discussions, right, throughout a lot of law enforcement agencies about whether or not you can view the body-worn camera, for example, right, that video before you write it. So those questions have come up in our institutions around the camera footage that we have and that sort of thing. And so at this point, let me go back and look at the actual language just to verify, and then I can shoot something over to Ms. Julian to clarify what it actually says. But typically, the expectation is that our officers are writing their incident reports independently, and then any supplemental reports from witness officers are being submitted. Oftentimes, they're writing them even at different times, different locations. And so I would venture to guess that that is not happening. We don't get the impression when we are doing critical incident reviews that any of that has happened. But let me definitely go back and look at the language in the other policies to see how it might support what you're getting at.
And quickly, it is strictly prohibited in the new juvenile use of force policy. There's a line item for it that kind of behavior, collaborating, coaching each other is strictly prohibited. I imagine it is in the other policies, but as Chief Fletcher mentioned, we'll go back and check.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's already language in another policy, I would love to see that just imported, probably. It's just when things are not in policy and then they happen, that ends up being able to protect wrongdoers. Thanks.
Commissioners, any more questions or comments before we move on? Okay, I don't see any more. Mr. Wong, it's great to see you again. Ms. Fletcher, always great to see you. And we will move on to our next agenda item.
Chair Carrillo, actually, we need to take a vote on a recommendation to approve the TASER policy. That's what the board has specifically requested us to do.
Let's do it. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, I'll take the lead on that. I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it. So second motion by Commissioner Meredith, seconded by myself, Commissioner Carrillo. Any discussion, Wendy?
I did hear Director Wong say something about question number 8 about the in the case of a fatality, that was something you were going to add to the policy. Can you just say that one more time, and maybe we can make the motion say the policy as amended?
Sure. So the question 8 was, will any mandatory mental health follow-up be required for staff in the event of a TASER fatality? And the answer is yes. So any type of fatality. Yes.
I think it was the following question, so I may have the wrong. I didn't have them numbered. The last question.
Wendy, that was the one. That was the last one. Mandatory mental health follow-up in the event of staff for a TASER fatality. So the answer is yes. Any type of fatality, the answer is yes.
Okay, any discussion on this? Commissioner Nunn?
Thank you for acknowledging my non-electronic hand. I didn't know whether I should say this during my vote. So I'll just say that I don't feel comfortable voting right now on this policy as is because of the discussion of a number of amendments that have been proposed. So I'm just going to state that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Lewis?
Just want to restate my opposition to tasers, period.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. And I don't see any more hands. So Wendy, can you call a vote?
Yes, so we are voting as the Board of Supervisors has requested us to do after a revision of the TASER policy to approve the policy as amended, as amended in the discussion by Director Wong. This was moved by Commissioner Meredith, seconded by Chair Cabrillo. So you are voting yes, no, or abstain to approving the policy and forwarding that recommendation to the board. Commissioner Canales?
I'm a little bit confused about Commissioner Nong's statement. So until I understand the amendments, I want to abstain.
Commissioner Garcia Lays?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Abstain.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nong?
No.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Aye.
So Danielle, that means that with 6 commissioners present, we have 3 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 2 abstentions. I believe that means it does not pass. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the motion does not pass, and procedurally, I think what that means is that we need to bring the TASER policy back to the commission.
You can bring it back to the commission, or if someone wants to make a different motion, you can do that as well. But you can also make a motion to table it and bring it back at a later date.
Thank you.
If I may, there were some motions made about, seeing specific language or conversations about that. Mr. Wong, if there's another presentation, may that be the next meeting, the one after, where commissioners are satisfied with the issues that were brought up today. Is that enough time for you to look into those issues about that are just on the table now that are concerning people?
There shouldn't be an issue. The main one was adding that last piece regarding the mandatory mental health follow-up for fatalities on the TASER. Some of the items I connect with Jessica from our side on and relook at that, and we'll see what kind of updates that we can provide in short order.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia-Lez?
Yeah, I voted in favor of this last motion because I didn't want to hold anything up. But if we're going to come back in 2 weeks or at another meeting, which I'm glad we're going to do, you can expect me to vote no unless there is also language in there that prohibits witnesses from discussing the incident before they write the report.
Okay, any other hands, comments on this matter? And commissioners, I think it's a good opportunity now to focus and direct any comments to Mr. Wong about what you would like to see in the next round. If there is a motion to, and I propose, I think I will motion to bring this back, table it for now and bring it back. But if there's anything you would like to see as a suggestion or even as a motion that he brings to the presentation next time around, I think it would be good for the commission. It'll be a reflection that the board obviously has already approved this, and we are making sure that the language in training, and as Commissioner Garcia-Lez is talking about, not only during pre-incident, during the incident, but mainly even after the incident, is being covered. And if not now, I suppose we have some time to think about what that can be. But I think that people's wheels are turning now. So if you have anything, I think it's a good time. And I see Commissioner Meredith, your hands up.
Yes, I was just going to say, I've read the policy, the training plan, and the policy, and it's very encompassing because a couple of the concerns I would have had were actually addressed in it. But taking into consideration, I think that we need to have clarification on how reports are written. I don't think that maybe some of the commissioners understand how a police report's written when we talk to witnesses and stuff, but not directly related to the taser. But I would kind of, at the back end of it, look at the idea of body cameras, because I think that would take away a lot of the concerns that people have. How long do you think it would take for you to come back with the answers to the motion there, Howard?
I'm gonna say about approximately at least 30 to 45 days, because the body worn cameras have came up a couple of years back. Now sat on that group, and it was a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure to even support BWCs for SEO. So that I just want to put that on the table. This thing did come up when the sheriff and the DAs were asking about body worn cams, and it was a lot of infrastructure and cost just to equip 100 of us back then. So
I'll be more than happy to lobby the board on that behalf, because I believe in cameras. Anyway,
yeah,
that's
so
all I had.
take it down.
Commissioner Nunn, you're up.
Thank you. I'm hoping I understood your suggestion correctly, Chair. So the specific things that I would like to see either included in the next policy or an explanation of why they're not included are: one, a specific ban on the use of tasers on young people incarcerated in juvenile facilities or young people on probation in the field. Inclusion of any specific factors to be considered in the totality of circumstances that are very specific to use of tasers as opposed to other uses of force. More specific information and clarification on the training provided to supervisors. I know that was confirmed, but because I like to just answer in policies questions that arose, because there was clearly a lack of clarity there. Specifics on the process, timing, attributes of any debriefs that will happen, whether on site or afterwards, with supervisors or others, and the supervisors' duties in those reviews. I also, this is a consistent thing, whether it's OC spread or anything else. This is more probably an explanation, and I think Commissioner Garcia-Leyes mentioned this about the importance of tracking uses. So some mention of how these uses are going to be tracked and reviewed for any patterns or trends.
Mr. Wong, I think we can also send you a list of these requests in case you're not, jotting them down now.
We'll send them
Don?
to Director Wong, Deputy Chief Fletcher, and Jessica Gama.
Thank you, Wendy. Don, is your hand up again? Okay, you're good. Commissioners, any other comments? Okay, so Mr. Wong, just to be clear, you said you need about 30 days, 30 to 45 days?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so taking county council's advice, one of the options we have is to table this for today and move it forward to maybe at this point now. Wendy, if you can help me with the calendar, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's the second meeting in August that would be appropriate.
Okay, so I would motion that we move.
The 25th. I don't actually think we need a motion for that to add it to the agenda, since that's your prerogative, along with Commissioners Jackson and Canales, to add items to the agenda. So since we already took a vote, I think we can just add that to our list of items for that meeting.
Wendy, I think
Yes.
it might be best practice for you to make a motion to table it.
Okay, great. So we can table, go ahead, Frankie, if you want to make a motion to table it, and then to bring it back on, is August 25th acceptable, Howard, or would you rather do that first meeting in September?
Can we go 1st of September?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
So that would be September 8th.
So I motion to table this topic until September 8th.
I'll second.
Thank you. I think we've motioned, we have discussion on this matter already. But if there's any other discussion, now's your opportunity to say something on this. Okay, Wendy, can we get a vote, please?
Yes, I can. So we're voting on tabling this item around the approval of the TASER policy and bringing it back September 8th. You're voting yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Canales,
Approve, yes.
Commissioner Garcia Lays,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Meredith,
Yes.
Commissioner Nong,
Aye.
and Chair Carrillo.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. We will now be moving on to item number 4. We will discuss and take appropriate action on the progress the probation department has made moving youth disposition to the secure track to Campus Kilpatrick and Camp Scott. However, I would like to move to table again another few items and discussion for further action on these items, and this item number 4 and number 5 on the LA model to our first August meeting on August 11th. And obviously that is because some of our commissioners are not here today. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it because I got to go here shortly.
Thank you, Don. Any discussion? Commissioner Nunn?
Sorry, well, two things. One, I was wondering if we were done with agenda item 3 because I was wondering if we could still discuss the documents provided about the deployment calendars. I did have some questions about that. So I didn't know if that was supposed to be part of agenda 3. And then if you could just repeat your motion.
Absolutely.
Sorry, because I didn't catch it all. Thanks.
No worries. So we are definitely done with item number 3, and we are now into item number 4.
Chair Carrillo, I think what Commissioner Nong is saying is that agenda item number 3 had 2 components. One was the TASER policy and the other was the update from the SEO, which involved the report back on the request for information that we made at the last meeting, which was for the deployment information and help me, Commissioner Nong. There were a couple of other things that are not occurring to me right now that the department has provided, and then an additional request for the training information that was not requested of the department. That's my failure. When I submitted the request, I didn't request the training information, and Commissioner Nong reminded me that that was part of the discussion during the last meeting. So we just wanted to clarify. I don't want to speak for you, Commissioner Nong, but just to clarify that we did want the training information for how SEO is trained to interact with youth when they're deployed to the juvenile halls and kiosks.
That's correct. Thanks.
Commissioner Nung, I see that Mr. Howard Wong is still here. Is that we wanted to direct that to him directly, or the request that was being made is that, I mean, do you want to go back to item number 3 is really what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, hold off on that motion. Don, I know you got to go. Actually, if we can just go back to this motion, because it's really just about tabling item 5 and 6, because just all the commissioners are not here, and I would like them to be here for these topics. And then we can go back to item number 3. So let me read that back to you one more time. So the motion is basically the motion is to table item number 5 and 6. Those being probation's report on moving secure track youth to Campus Kilpatrick and Camp Scott. And item number 6 is also asking to be tabled, which is a report on the LA model. So item number 5 and number 6, I'm requesting to be tabled.
I think it's 4 and 5.
Oh, forgive me, 4 and 5. And Don, are you still gonna second that?
Correct. I second it.
Thank you.
Can I call the roll?
Can I ask a clarifying question on that?
Please.
I'm sorry, for tabling item 4, I know at our last meeting, or maybe 2 meetings ago, we had asked for movement by July 1st. So I understand tabling the issue because there are missing people there, but because we'd set a specific deadline, I'm wondering if there's even a short update that we can have on it. I don't want to table it completely.
Okay. Commissioner Lewis?
Same question. I'm curious because I go in Saturday and every one of these kids are going to ask me the same question. Like, and they're basically saying we're full of crap. I quote, all we want is consistent programs and consistent staff, and you can see us change. And we can't give them that.
Anyone else? Okay, Wendy, so I suppose if you want to maybe split these 4 and 5 and then let the commissioners just vote on that. So maybe it's the same motion, but maybe just take one vote at a time.
Okay, so you want to make the motion for just for one or the other?
Sure. So I motion to table item number 4. And the vote will be on tabling that. I'm sorry.
So this is the movement of SYTF. Commissioner Meredith, are you seconding that motion?
Yes.
Do we
Okay,
get an update first or?
so all what you're voting on right now is whether or not to table this item. So if you want to get an update, you can vote no, and then we'll proceed with the item. Yes, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Commissioner Canales? So a yes vote is to table the item, a no vote is to get an update.
Okay, no, I'd like an update. Thank you.
Commissioner Garcia Lays,
No.
Commissioner Lewis,
No.
Commissioner Meredith,
Yes.
Commissioner Nong,
No.
Commissioner Carrillo.
Yes.
Okay, so we are not going to table item 4. So shall we continue with item 4 or vote to table item 5?
Only because Don has to go. Let's just take a vote on tabling item number 5, which is a report on the LA model.
Okay, Commissioner Meredith, are you seconding that motion?
Yes.
Okay, so a yes vote is to table item number 5. A no vote is to continue with the item on the LA model. Commissioner Canales,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia Lays,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith, is that a yes? Is that a yes or an abstention, Commissioner Meredith?
It's a yes. It freezes up on me sometimes. It's
Okay.
a yes.
Oh,
Gotta
gotcha.
go.
Yes. Okay, Commissioner Nong,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo.
That's a yes.
Okay, so we are tabling item number 5. And can, so now the question is if we're going back to item number 3.
Got it. Don, thank you so much. You're excused. 1 second here. So item number, I have it down as 4, but so item number 3 is an update on probation. The probation department giving us an update on the movement of secure track to Campus Kilpatrick and Campus Scott. And I think we have.
You're correct that that's item number 4. What Commissioner Nong was asking was to go back
Oh,
to
forgive me.
the question about SEO.
Thank you. So is Commissioner Nunn, floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the sharing of the deployment schedules for SEOs into the juvenile facilities. And I just have a couple of questions from it because it is clear, at least in January and February, there were 0 deployments. And I do have specific questions about the number of times that it was deployed. And because it's so rare, I'm hoping you actually have information about these. So I see that 4 were deployed to Barry J the week of March 21st, Monday through Friday. And then actually for 3 weeks, from April 25th to May 15th, which is the last data we have, there were also 1 to 3 SEO officers consistently there. And then a particular concern is May 3rd, where there were 26 SEOs there in the morning and 21 in the afternoon. So for all of these incidents, but especially May 3rd, was just wondering if you could explain sort of why they were there. And I don't know if these are new questions because these were the same questions asked last time that I generally wanted information on, but why they were there, who's deciding to bring them in, and how far in advance they're decided to do this, and specifically where they were assigned. There was discussions last time they were in the school. Sometimes they were being observed by monitors standing in the back. There are statements that some of them are in the units. And also want to know what their directives are when they are inside. Sorry, I just threw them all for time, but I'm hoping you can answer them all for me.
Howard, I'll jump in and then I'm sure you can provide more detail if that's okay with everyone. So in March, that is the time frame when we had to evacuate Central Juvenile Hall and move the youth to Barry J. We experienced a lot of issues with our youth and some of the youth on youth violence that was happening in that transition and in the days after. And so SEO actually, at my request, was brought in to kind of help us stabilize. We had so many call outs of staff across the board. And then, of course, our ongoing struggle with vacancies and leaves, that we had SEO on site. They helped also in the transport of those youth by being escorts to the vans in case anything happened on the trip between the facilities. They did not have to engage in any of that, but they were on site a few times in March, as you noted. The May 3rd date was when the DOJ attorneys were on site at Barry J. And one of the items in particular that we were working with our DOJ monitor and the attorneys on was making sure that kids got out of their units and to the school movement and into classrooms appropriately. So we had experienced times where kids were receiving packets in their units because of some of the violence that was happening and the disruption. And so we had SEO. In fact, I stood with them in the middle of the grass area at Barry J to watch the movement, to make sure that we had enough people on site that we could intervene if there was a problem. But certainly just sometimes the safety in numbers, and when our youth were struggling for those periods of time, just having the extra bodies sometimes is a diversion, right? You don't even have to engage with the youth. Just having more staff on site is helpful. Some of our staff helped get the kids to class, just walking with them. And those were SEO staff. But for the most part, on that particular day when we had so many, it was nice to hear from the DOJ attorneys that they appreciated SEO standing by and the manner in which they stood by to ensure that school movements were happening and that they could help structure youth if they needed to. So those were really those days. And we have used them on occasion when we need to do searches. Sometimes our folks are coming in with the canines, but SEO really, we try not to use them in the institutions unless absolutely necessary, but they are, as are most of our field deployed staff, are used as backup officers, right? So if there is a need to engage, then they would engage to break up fights, for example. We had plenty of some racial tensions and some gang violence back and forth during those days. So those extra bodies were there to assist. It wasn't necessarily the situation where we had to use them to do the regular work in the units. It was the extra bodies. And I don't know if, Howard, you have more on that or not.
No, but that's the gist of it. Yes. Thank you.
Just some follow-up questions, and maybe I'll go by the dates. I understand that you're saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, that they were used for transport on the date of transfer of young people, which in my notes I have it as March 12th, but these were March 21st through 25th. So those were 5 days that were a couple of weeks after the move. So either they are used for transport, in which case they're not on the calendar, which is concerning, or they are being used for something else. Is that for staff call-outs then for that week?
Right. Some of it is staff callouts, and that really was when a lot of that was happening. For the transports, let me clarify, they were used as escorts. And so they drove, behind or in front of the vans to make sure that the vans of our youth got there safely. So they didn't engage with the kids in that way. They just were used for the escort.
I know our latest data is up until May 15th. Given that they were consistently there for 3 weeks, starting April 25th. Are there still 1 to 3 officers there consistently every day? And if not, when did those deployments stop?
No, deployment's still continuing. And so SEO folks or staff in SEO are part of the regular deployments from the field, right? So usually 1 or 2, right, per day as part of the overall deployment piece.
I'm sorry, could you clarify? So because I'm not sure about regular deployment because January and February you have 0 noted. So now in BJN you're having 1 to 2 every day beginning in April. Is that right?
I
In
don't think
BJN?
I don't think we ever stopped, right, Karen? We are deploying 30 in the AM and 30 in the PM shifts from the field to assisted institutions. And SEO folks have adults as part of that 30 count. Because the question was for SEO deployments, not deployments overall, just SEO deployments.
SEO deployments specifically in Central and in Barry J.
Correct.
It's right. And so I'm seeing numbers that are consistently 1 to 3. And then I have the huge increase on May 3rd, which I actually have follow-up questions about. And just want to clarify if they're still being deployed 1 to 2 in Barry J specifically. And if so, why and how long do you expect that to continue? Especially given that it used to be 0 in January and February. So just trying to understand the circumstances.
It's still being deployed. Deployment from the field is still active until further notice, until the staffing stabilizes.
And where are they posted? Are they in the units? Are they still observing in the fields? Are they there for transport to school safety?
It might be all 3. It depends on the shift and how many people showed up, what the staffing ratios are, and what the staffing looks like. So Karen, I'm gonna kick it over on the staffing piece.
Yeah, absolutely. It does depend on what the staffing looks like, but any of our deployed staff from the field, the goal is to have them be the backup. So if they are deployed to a unit, they are supporting the regular staff who work at DSB. But we've really struggled with those call outs and the number of people that we've had on leaves. And so SEO is mixed in with other deployments as Howard described.
Okay, I see Commissioner Lewis's hand up. I guess I just have one question. I heard you say that May 3rd, there was that huge increase because DOJ attorneys were present. And so I'm wondering, is there something special about that day besides their presence that caused the increase? And what changed that made you decide that for the following days after that, you didn't need all those people that you did for just that one day?
Yeah, I think, certainly talking with the DOJ attorneys, one of the major concerns is how do we get kids to classrooms and how do we do it timely, right? So not taking an extra hour in the morning to get our youth ready to walk over to school. And so in order to make sure that that was happening and to show that we really do have the ability to pull in other staff if needed, those SEOs stood by, right? So we had great feedback from the attorneys about our ability to pull other staff if we needed to. We were able to not have much engagement. I think we ended up maybe with one incident in the school that day, but they really stood by just to make sure. And if there was a way that they could help us structure and to get kids to school, then they were helping to do that. But one of the main concerns is, how do we do it? Do we need the extra help? And how do we sustain our ability to get kids into classrooms effectively and timely? And so they were used as the standby, and in particularly that day to have them ready to address any of those outstanding concerns. And I think, once our staff is able to see and set the tone sometimes with the structure of youth and the expectation of getting to school, then I think, kids do follow the instructions. And so we were able to set that tone specifically that day and continue that. So we've actually improved quite a bit in our ability to make sure that our youth are in classrooms on a regular basis and not, having packets in their units, which we all know is not the best approach.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis?
Thank you, Chair Correa. And this is actually Commissioner Long. This is kind of along the lines of I want to remind both the public and the commission that when the hiring freeze was lifted for COVID for the county, the cap remained on juvenile facilities. I think this is something that needs to be addressed because, I'm in there every weekend and I quote, "We don't have consistent staff." This is from kids, like across the board. We don't have consistent staff. And so if they don't have consistent staff, these deployments are necessary. I also I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Normally, the compound that's not allowed to come out on the grass, they've had a couple opportunities where they've been able to come out and play on the grass, and there were no incidents. But these were times when they had staff for it. Consistently, the problem is staffing for programs. If there's a cap on juvenile facilities, why is the cap still remaining there, but the rest of the county is free to hire? If we need staff for programs, like it's not rocket science. Literally, the one place that they can't hire is for juvenile facilities. So we're worried about the deployment of these DSOs that are coming from the community, but we won't allow the only two juvenile facilities to hire staff to get staffed up to run programs and to get our kids to classes. Like, what do we do? Do we submit a motion? This is because of Justice Reimagined and Measure J, but like, we need to look into this. It's that simple. The cap remains on juvenile facilities, and it's only 2 in the county. Should it be a motion to ask the CEO's office if the cap can be removed in order for us to staff up the juvenile facilities so that we can run programs consistently in these 2 facilities?
Commissioner Lewis, I think you have the privilege to motion anything that you think is whatever you want to motion. No one's going to limit you on that. I just hearing from Ms. Fletcher about people just not coming to work. So there's people who sadly have a job but just are not showing up. So I'm not sure sort of how to tackle this, but I see your point.
Thank you, Chair Cadillo. I'd like to motion for recommendation that the cap be lifted, the motion to the CEO's office that the cap be lifted from juvenile facilities in order to allow these facilities to hire the staff necessary to run consistent programs inside the only 2 juvenile facilities in the entire county of Los Angeles for the benefit of the youth that are currently incarcerated in those facilities.
Commissioner Garciles?
All right, so I have 2 concerns. First is, the discussion of tabling this because we don't have enough commissioners here makes me think this is actually something that, Sam, you should agendize for our next meeting, perhaps, instead of trying to get us to vote on it today. That's one concern. And the second thing, though, is I'm supporting 2 competing goals here. One, which is I want enough staff to run programs, exactly like you said. The other is to try and not increase probation's footprint. And it does seem like the best solution is the existing staff coming to work. Now, what I'm not sure about, but you seem to be, is that we were done with that. It's not going to happen. That can't be our plan A. We need to move past that and get a plan B, which is hiring a bunch of more, DSOs to make up for the ones who aren't coming to work. And then when they do come to work, we'll just have that much more staff. But I don't feel like I'm in a position right now where I feel comfortable making that call. Is it time to give up on our current DSOs coming to work and hire some more? Or is that still what we should be trying to hope will happen?
I'm in a position that I feel my conscience is like, I fully support this. I'm in there every week, every weekend, and sometimes multiple times in the week. And there's some programs that I can't bring in the number of people that I want to bring in to engage with these young people because they don't have staff. This will look like, and then here's an even bigger question. Why does the rest of the county, the biggest county, I believe, in the United States, allowed to hire, but not these two facilities? I mean, it's like, I want to put these kids first. And in order for us to put these young people first, and for them to have programs, there has to be staff in order to do this. For them to come out on the field, for them to go in the swimming pool, for them to be able to actually learn pro-social activities, we need staff. If the staff don't show up, we can address that later. Like, and I'll get in trouble for this if we have to fire them or whatever the decision is. But right now, we don't have enough staff. And at the core of this, those that are suffering are the most vulnerable, the youth that are currently incarcerated. They're suffering because we're
Lewis.
inaction.
Forgive me for interrupting you, but I think before we open it to any further discussion, we should get a second on this motion. If anyone wants to support this motion from Commissioner Lewis. I will point out that we are down to like a skeleton crew commission now. We have 4 commissioners missing. So I will echo Commissioner Garcia's concerns about that. But regardless of that, if somebody wants to second this motion, now would be the time. And Commissioner Canales, I see your hand is up. Is that for discussion or is that because you want to second the motion?
Apologies, I had just wanted to make a comment, but my comment was more along the lines of the concern about hiring new staff. And then who's to say that the new staff wouldn't start calling in too? I mean, it's just such a, but at the same time, I understand Mr. Lewis's concern. This is a very hard one.
Commissioner Lewis, seeing no one wanted to second this motion, I think when County Council or Wendy, can you sort of direct me here? What's the next move? I mean, the motion fails, obviously.
Yes, with no second, the motion fails.
Thank you. I will add and just say to Adam and Ms. Fletcher, if what Commissioner Lewis is bringing up is valid, obviously not only for the compound, but throughout the institutions, both of these that he's pointing out. Down to the nitty gritty about these issues about just people not showing up, and then the people, obviously the youth who are there having to suffer. Is there any other tactics that or plans in place or going to be in place that you can sort of satisfy some of these concerns that we have?
Sure, I think we can probably both take a shot at this, right? So we are working with County DHR and the CEO's office about the hiring freeze. We're hoping that we'll have more information early next week about whether or not we will be allowed to make some conditional job offers. But I think it's a vicious cycle, right? So we have vacancies, we have a significant percentage of staff who are out on some kind of leave. And so people then consistently get held over, right? So they end up having to work 16 hours. And to avoid that, to be able to care for their own families and their own needs, they call out sick on their own shift to avoid being held over for the next shift, right? So it just is this snowball. We are working with camp staff, and we will be deploying some camp staff who are very skilled at working with young people. That will help us alleviate some of the deployment challenges that we have had with field staff, get other folks that are already working with young people in the juvenile halls. But it takes a while, right? Even if we were given the green light to hire today, going through the application and the background process and the hiring and the training takes time. So we're trying to kind of put Band-Aids on, before we bleed out. And it's, we have to bring people in so that staff and kids feel safe, so that we can do all of the work that our staff really want to do, right? But we're in a situation now where the constant holdovers really burn people out, and they can't always stay for 16 hours, nor should they, right? So I want to give credit to the staff because they've worked really hard, but it's been a long time. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to lift, the hiring freeze in some ways and get some folks in. But we are working on a plan to get some more camp staff to help us out in the juvenile halls as well.
And just a couple other things, In terms of increasing the footprint by lifting the hiring freeze, that's actually not what we're proposing to CEO or the board. What we're proposing is to lift the hiring freeze so that we can keep up with attrition. So we lost last year, last fiscal year, we lost 130 staff to resignation, promotion, retirement. We hired 30. So we're not even keeping up with the numbers of folks leaving. We have far more vacancies than we need. And this executive team has committed to the reform efforts that the county is undergoing. And so it allows us to do kind of both things at the same time. We have care and custody today. We need to support the young people and the youth that we have in our facilities. And it allows for us to also take a closer look at the other critical vacancies that we may have, but also recognizing that we have too many vacancies and working with CEO to determine what happens with those. So that's one of the major things that we need to address is just attrition. So it doesn't actually grow, probation's footprint and give us, hundreds more staff. It just allows us to keep up running academies so that we can address some of the folks that were leaving. We graduated 7 DSOs this morning. 7 is not enough. We need 30 more behind that and then 30 more behind that. And it just has to go at a flow basis because we know that people will leave, they'll find other employment, things like that will happen. So that's the front end issue. And what Chief Fletcher mentioned on the back end is we are working closely with DHR on disability management. We know that we have folks that are working on doctor's notes that are expired. We need to get those people back to work if they're able to get back to work. We're looking at time cards, specifically time management and how that's been going in the halls. And we're providing payroll staff, other human resources staff to deploy to the sites to start to handle some of the administrative roles that were otherwise handled by operations. And they're trying to keep the kids safe. We need to take on some of that burden. So we've deployed administrative staff to do that and to help out as much as possible. So we're trying to kind of connect at both ends. Really, the front end is lifting the hiring freeze so that we can just have a flow of folks to keep up with attrition. And then the other end is working really, really diligently and creatively to try to get as many folks back as we possibly can.
Adam, is there something in writing at this point about the credible messengers being, extra bodies who would be, someone who can escort these, activities or sort of be present while this is happening, or are these credible messengers more have more of a limited role?
So there's a proposed expansion of the Credible Messenger program. We already have these folks working with our young people through ARC and HDA and other organizations. I know we switched the letters around. DYD now, so formerly YDD, is working on a more formal presentation and proposal related to the Credible Messenger. So that will formalize, Chair Carrillo, kind of exactly what the roles will be and how it will complement what probation is already doing.
Interesting. Okay. I just hear, when I hear Commissioner Lewis, who's very passionate, he's always going into Seymour Juvenile Hall. I just wonder, like, not only is it Commissioner Lewis, but his team who make up an army of people who are there to do the right thing. And I'm just a little taken by the fact that not only, well, first of all, I'm sure that the youth are happy to see them, and throwing the football around or interacting even on a hot day would be a wonderful treat for them. But while I'm a little confused or maybe surprised that they are not allowed to maybe not spend time just Commissioners Lewis and his team. Obviously, there would be some staff involved as well, but how that would how that should sort of balance out and say, because we have 10 volunteers, we should be able to go outside. And I'm not sure if Commissioner Lewis wants to jump in and say how that would be a great benefit to have that privilege, or that I'm not sure what we would assign. But Commissioner Lewis?
So it's always been my position, and it will remain my position as a credible messenger. Both my staff and volunteers that come in with us, we're not probation staff. So if a fight breaks out, if we can verbally get young people to stop, we'll do that. But we're not gonna physically try to separate youth. That's probation's place. We can talk them, like oftentimes when they've had incidents, we've had full access to be able to talk with the kids, get them to work together, de-escalate the situation. We've had plenty of access and we've been able to do those things. But there's some jobs that are just not, like, it's not our responsibility to do that, nor are we trained to do that. And if I were to ask my mentors that come in with me to do that, I would be putting them at risk. It's like that's the honest truth. If you can imagine, and Chair Carrillo, you know this from lived experience as I do. Imagine a fight breaking out amongst 10 people, and when you start breaking it up and you get hit, like, I'm not trained to, like, just take a hit and keep trying to, like, I'm not, like, I'm gonna react to that. Like, I've been through it. And so this is the problem that we have. And then imagine when we have uh, uh, female mentors that come in that are teaching a writing class or teaching an art class. They also are not, like, that's just not their place. And so, and when I say not their place, physically, we're not meant to provide security or any of those things. We're there to provide programming, life skills, mentoring. And in order to do that, we need staff. Let me highlight this. On the 4th of July, we were there from 8 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, barbecuing for all of the youth and Barry J. Like, and the staff, like, the entire staff that helped us do this worked on their off days. And most of them were either directors or supervisors, and they had no problem doing it. But this is what I mean. Like, I even had staff saying, well, where are these other, like, and I commend the staff that were there, that show up every day, that work with these kids, like, they're there. But again, we had to do this in sections or in spots. That's why we had to be there the entire day. And there's no complaint there, but we could have did so much more if we had probation staff there to do their part in conjunction with what we would be doing as credible messengers.
Understood. I just, my position was very optimistic. I was just making, viewing through a very optimistic lens. Just your presence alone would alleviate some of that nonsense. But obviously, what you're saying is that I was trying to assign you a role that you definitely do not want to take on. So I totally respect that. Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Hi, yeah, Chief Patino, you said something that caught my ear. You said we'll know more next week about lifting the hiring freeze. Would a vote like the one Commissioner Lewis proposed help in whatever's happening next week, or it's already in motion?
So some things are in motion, certainly wouldn't hurt. But we are having ongoing conversations. Chief Fletcher and I have had ongoing conversations with CEO and some of the board offices at this point.
Okay, I think I might support something like Commissioner Lewis's motion if it included that we were really just focused on replacing attrition and not ending up in a situation in the future where we're trapped with a great number more DSOs than we need. But I would, my first choice is to agendize this for another meeting and have some presentations and think it through more wholesomely before we vote.
Okay, not seeing any more hands, unless there's an actual waving hand at me. We are going to move on. Thank you, everyone. Except you, Adam Bettino, stick around. So we are now going to discuss and take appropriate action on the progress the probation department has made towards moving youth disposition to secure track to either Campus Kilpatrick or Camp Scott. Adam, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. It is unfortunately a quick update, not an update that the commission is going to be too thrilled with. Not much has changed. So we have had another conversation with our labor partners. Chief Fletcher and I did meet with them formally with employee relations, had some more conversation about some of the things that they are requesting, some clarification. We were then able to present some of the things that we've been moving towards and sort of a promise for another meeting, which is not on calendar. So what that means is that we go back to employee relations and have some deeper conversation about next steps and what what the department is effectively able to do, and some conversation about what risks may be involved. So that folks know, I mean, we've had public records requests, both from City of Malibu, also from City of Santa Clarita, related to Camp Scott. Quickly on Camp Scott, we do have, and I want to be careful how I share all of this. Obviously, that's kind of the ongoing disclaimer, but we do have a proposed study from the architect on some potential renovations to Camp Scott. We're sorting through with County Council exactly how to share that. So if folks recall, the way that we want to be responsive to the board motion on March 15th is to work with the Juvenile Justice Realignment Block Grant Subcommittee to discuss the proposed renovations and then present something to the board about what those proposed renovations may be. Trying to sort that out in a public meeting, given the ongoing litigation, is a challenge. So I certainly don't know how to do that. So we're conferring with County Council to determine the best path forward. I think we have one, which would be sort of synthesizing the documents that we do have and presenting them publicly with the subcommittee to have some discussion around renovation. I will share just generally the discussion around open dorm versus closed keeps coming up. What I mean closed, I mean individual rooms versus open dorm. Based on everything that we've been reviewing, even the work that was done by the Burns Institute as part of the Youth Justice Reimagine work, there's a line that keeps banging around in my head around safety and dignity. And the young people who were surveyed then really preferred individual rooms in a private space. And so when we look at Camp Scott in particular, we want to take that into account and consideration, that we're making sure that we're maintaining dignity of the young people, that we're being as safe as possible. And so it's something that I think originally we had set out to pursue open dorm, and we may be rethinking that. Some of our team has had ongoing focus groups with young people coming back from DJJ, and they've said the same thing, that they mostly prefer to have an individual room. Another update of note has to do with, so Chief Fletcher and I did have a conversation with DJJ, and we're trying to get some clarity around young people who will be returning to us. So beginning, I think January 1, there's going to be a series of hearings that come up. Some, I think, between January and June, we're going to start to see some young people coming back to us from DJJ. The total population is, and I'll defer to Chief Fletcher here, but the total population is about 112. Some of those will be paroled prior to June 30th. Remember, June 30th is the last day that DJJ will have jurisdiction of these young people. They'll be coming back to us. So something like 32 of them will have a date prior to June 30th, and we'll know if they're coming back to a community-based option. We'll have a sense of whether or not they need to be in a secure facility. The other 80, we are most likely going to need to have in a secure facility. We don't know for sure. We're working closely with the state folks to determine how exactly that will work, meaning these young people are going to come to us with various challenges and at various stages of their transformation. So we don't know exactly how these young people will come back to us. I share all that because the main issue is capacity. So as of today, I think this morning there's 52 young people who've been ordered SYTF. That's just the front end. We have some more young people who are going to be calendared in the coming months. We have this larger population that's coming to us before July 1st of next year. And it's something that we all need to really put our heads together and decide how we're going to move forward. So we're thinking through some potential options. But if you look at the population at the juvenile hall now, is creeping up steadily. our SYTF population is growing. Campus Kilpatrick, in terms of capacity, is going to be limited. We believe Camp Scott, at least based on the preliminary study, is looking like 40 to 50 young people. We're going to outgrow those sites really quickly. And so trying to determine exactly what comes next. So I know it's a little bit more than just what's going on with Kilpatrick and Camp Scott, but I don't know that we can share just those two things in isolation without sharing exactly what it is that we're thinking longer term. And I'll defer to Chief Fletcher. I don't know what else I left out there, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, I think the 80 that we know for sure do not have their first parole hearing date before June 30th. So on June 30th, that's the last day that DJJ has jurisdiction over any of the population that they currently have in custody. In addition to that, the 32 that Adam mentioned, those are individuals that have their first parole date between January 1st and June 30th. So if they are released, then we'll support them in the community. But if they are not released at that hearing, then they would join that 80. Most are, as we understand it from DJJ, are either homicide cases or assault with a deadly weapon. The average age is 20. And I think the longest period of time for one individual that was cited was that we would have that person in our custody and care until 2028. So when we would receive them, we would have an additional 5 years. But there has to be transfer hearings that happen. And so a lot of those details are being worked out between local jurisdictions and DJJ to make sure that we don't get to, June 29th, and then all of a sudden we're trying to move kids or young men into the facilities. So all of that will be happening, and I would anticipate that the moves are going to begin in the spring, but we'll certainly know more once DJJ kind of hammers out some of those processes.
Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for this item?
We do, thank you. And I also will add one quick update based on what Commissioner Lewis said, is that I did send the POC's resolution to the supervisors after the last meeting with respect to the July 1st recommendation. The only direct response that I received was from Supervisor Kuehl's office, who she told me directly reached out to the probation department requesting such a move. But the obstacles that Chief Bettino brought up have prevented that move from happening, is my understanding. So that is the update in terms of the result of the POC's resolution. I'll also say I really appreciate Chief Bettino and Fletcher not trying to be too crystal ball-ish in noting the numbers. But there is a way to, I think about those numbers in the sense that if you think about the 80 that Chief Fletcher just explained and the 50 who have been dispositioned to secure track since July 1st, 2021, it would make sense if we continued on the same track for there to be another 50 dispositioned to the secure track between now and June 30th, 2023. Would you agree with that number, as without asking you to pinpoint it, because I know that's not fair, but 50 plus 50 plus 80 is a very big number in comparison to the number of young people that we have in long-term placements now, as we have under 100 in the camp placements. So it changes the dynamic of what our population looks like in Los Angeles County very distinctly. So we have a number of written comments on this issue that are attached to the agenda. I encourage folks to submit written comments. If you get them in by 5 today, they'll be attached to the official agenda. We have a few people who signed up early to give comments, so I'll ask them to raise their hands. It's Zoe Rawson and Danita Beauchamp. If you both are on the call, you push the little raise your hand button or dial *3 if you'd like to make a comment. We will start with Trey. Trey, we're going to unmute you and then you have to unmute yourself. And then you'll have 2 minutes once we make that happen. Janae, I see the little lock button next to Trey's name, so I wonder if that means they're not able to.
Yes, the request to unmute has been sent. However, we probably could move on into.
Okay, let's go on to Ryondell Bourne and we'll come back to Trey. So Ryondell, you're welcome to begin and you're unmuted.
NYJC Youth Justice Coalition. I don't know who I heard last speaking before you, Wendy, but I don't know if you said the youth will be moved in March or spring. You know, that's around March, so that's a long time from now. But to my knowledge, I know that the POC has passed a resolution in the recent past that youth with secure track dispositions were to be moved to Kilpatrick right by July 1st. And here it is, we're at July 14th, so we're way behind schedule with that. And some of these young people have been in the compound for a little over a year, right? And so keeping them in that space in Barry J is really unacceptable. Barry J is a juvenile hall. It's not a long-term place for healing, right? So probation, step the game up when it comes to that. Definitely, has been a whole year. And to my knowledge, also you guys have been in some sort of labor negotiations, right, since last year. What's the holdup? That's a real question. We want to know, where things are, right? And so what and who are the barriers in stopping this process? It shouldn't take this long to get these youth moved to secure track facilities, right? So definitely, that is a real question. Like, what is the holdup? Who or what are the barriers? I don't know if any of the chief deputies or anybody want to answer that, commissioners, but yeah, that's a real question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryondell. We'll go back to Trey and see if we can get you on. Okay, actually, let's move on to Cookie Lamel. Cookie, you're unmuted and you can begin whenever you're ready. Cookie, can you hear us? Janae, let's move on to the call-in user number 37. If you're calling in, you need to dial *6 to unmute yourself after we unmute you. We're going to start with number 37. Your phone number begins with 661-582. So we'll unmute you and then you need to dial *6. I think we can hear you.
Hey, good afternoon, Commission. My name is James and I currently work as a field deputy probation officer. And I'm not really sure what is going on with our upper management and maybe the Board of Supervisors in terms of looking at Kilpatrick or Camp Scott as a permanent SYTF housing facility. I don't know why Challenger Memorial Youth Center, which is up in Lancaster, is not being considered. I've heard different talk about it's reallocated to a different program. I live up in the high desert and there's nothing being done with that facility, sitting there with security 24/7. They have not made any changes there. As a matter of fact, probation still currently has employees housed there. And as this program continues to expand, I feel like as a community safety option, it's the only appropriate place to house the SYTF youth. I don't know if, I know in the past there's been a lot of talk about the children who have been sentenced or disposition to SYTF, but I've been deployed to the unit X as well as Z, which currently house all the adjudicated SYTF youth, and I would say 90% of those ones that are adjudicated are there for 187 murder. Majority of them are gang members, and I'm all for rehabilitation and creating an environment for the youth to grow and change. But I can tell you, working at Kilpatrick as well as been at Camp Scott in the past, those are not appropriate facilities, and I hate to see the youth get out and do some damage to the community, and then we're trying to fix a problem that could have been avoided in the beginning by not housing them at Challenger Memorial Youth Center. The center's huge. It has the capacity to grow. It has the housing capacity for staff. It has a specially handling unit for youth who are incorrigible, and I don't know why this is not being entertained. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're going to go next to Kent Mendoza. Kent, we're going to unmute you. All right, you should be able to speak now. Ken, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, you can begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kent Mendoza. I'm with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. Just wanted to express my concerns on all of this that is happening. You know, I think that at this point we shouldn't be discussing where the youth should be put on. I think that the board has already approved the facilities and all those things. So I think that at this point we just need to figure out what is probation doing to ensure that all these young people are actually starting to receive the programs and tools that they need in order for them to successfully not only transition from the compound to camps Kilpatrick, but just in general, like what are y'all doing? Because you know everything that you've seen around the violence and all that, you know, it's just if you would have taken into consideration all the things that the community has been working on for the past 2.5 years around Youth Justice Reimagined, some of these things have been addressed in these discussions, you know. And I think that, you know, I think what we at ARC do in the company is something that we need to figure out how to continue to further expand it. You know, you need to have more than just probation staff working with the young people, you know, because yes, I know that some of you have been working for years in this department, but yet again, when you have credible messages like myself, who at one point were 707B offenders, was in Kilpatrick, was in Camp Scudder, Challenger, and all of these places that you all think that is the best ideal place for people like myself who were those kids. I was like these kids at one point. We're wrong, you know. I think that the whole point of us coming to this Youth Justice Reimagined to get away from old practices, old punitive models, and all of those things. So for people to be advocating for the same system, the same models, it's just ridiculous. We already spend too much money incarcerating young people every year. So it's time that we actually get our stuff together, man, and be bold about this stuff. You know, let this union negotiations that are happening are literally holding back a lot of the process, and ultimately, the young people are suffering more than the staff are. So just keep that in mind. There's lives of young people that are literally suffering more than the staff are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kent. We're going to go back to Cookie Lamel. I think we figured out how to unmute Cookie. Maybe I spoke. There we go. Okay, Cookie, I think we can hear you now.
Hi, my name is Cookie Lamel. I am with the Probation Officers Union, AFSCME Local 685. And I noticed as we talked about the lack of staff or sufficient staff in some of the facilities, the one thing that nobody mentioned is what is the reason that these people are not coming to work? And assaults on staff is one of those reasons that nobody has talked about, or they don't bring it up, or we haven't figured out any solutions to assaults on staff. I mean, I really liked hearing what Sam Lewis had to say about the staff coming in on their days off. It shows how dedicated our people are. And they wouldn't all be out if there were something going on. They want to go home to their families at the end of their shift also. And then the second part of this is the company, it's called Sedgwick. When you have an injury, you have to go through Sedgwick in order to get it treated. But they take forever, like a year or something, when you have certain injuries. And this also stops people having the ability to go back to work. So as much as we focus on the kids, it's important to also focus on the people who are supervising them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Cookie. We're going to try one more with Trey one more time. That does not seem to be working. Okay, I think we can end public comment at this point, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, any thoughts, comments, questions? Commissioner Lewis?
Just wanted to point out a few things. The comment on Challenger is, if anyone took the time, got in your car, and go to all of these facilities and look, you would actually realize, first of all, Challenger is too far. For the parents that want to come see their family who live in Long Beach or South Central, East LA, I lived in Lancaster, not far from Challenger. That's too far, first of all. Barry J is actually not a great location either. If I'm gonna be honest, and I'm just gonna be the broker of honesty and truth. Have you ever been to Barry J? Imagine a mom that doesn't have a car, that has to get off the bus on Foothill and then walk about a quarter of a mile through a homeless camp with no sidewalks. 2 homeless camps is like literally going and coming. You have to walk back. It's about a quarter of a mile. Now imagine that mom wanting to go see her son or her daughter at Barry J. Just being honest. It's a trek. Don't believe me? Park your car on Foothill and walk to Barry J. Just walk to the parking structure, you'll see it. If you look at all these other camps and places that people say we shouldn't use, to be honest, broker of truth, the best juvenile hall facility would actually be Las Padrinas. That's the truth. People don't want to hear, but I'm just going to say what's the truth. And I'm going to tell you why. People have talked about flood concerns. They've talked about location. They've talked about fire concerns. Las Padrinas is centrally located. It's near public transportations. There are no homeless places that people have to walk through. You can actually get there. It's closer for probation staff coming from all directions, so it'll be easier for them. It's closer for stakeholders that offer programs like ARC, Healing Dialogues in Action. It's closer for the families to be able to get on the bus and go see their kids because family unification is important. So if we're going to be honest about this, the best place would be there. It's also like, it feels more like a campus, like a school. It's not like Barry J that feels not so much like a campus, just being honest on these things. And so if the public is really sincere about serving these young people that have made bad choices, but are not necessarily bad kids, as one of the probation officers, incorrigible, that's an old school term. If that was true, I would be still in prison because they consider me incorrigible. If we're going to be real about this, here's the reality. Both the public as adults, this commission, and everybody else probation should be putting these young people first because ultimately our goal is to bring them back into the community better than they went in, to be healed, to be whole, to be healthy, and to be the best version of themselves. And if we can't do this as a community, then we might as well just all hang up our boots and go into a different line of work. My job is to speak the truth. And my job is to be the voice of these young people who often don't have a voice. And if you go in and you sit down and you listen to these kids, and we're going to be doing some listening sessions, and you ask them what do they want the same thing we want for them. They want to be better. They want a good job. They want to go to school. Most of them didn't have choices to put them in those positions. The last thing I'll say is this. If labor, the unions, can't come up with an understanding and really push and be leaders, then you need to step down too. Like, let's just be honest about this. This has been going on way too long. We're going to have way too many kids with no programs inside buildings. The time of warehousing people is over. Let's do this. Come on, I'm game for it. I even said that ARC will fund some of the programs ourselves. We should not have to do this, but if this is what's required, we're willing to step forward. Can we get the community to get behind this? Reach out to our board of supervisors and just say, look, this is taking too long. And the most vulnerable population, those that are inside who have no voice, are not being serviced properly. That's the truth.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, questions? Adam, so it wasn't, the most profound update. It seemed to be pretty much recycled from the last time we talked about this, but anything hopeful you can leave us with? Anything you're holding a card down in your sleeve, now's the time to pull it out, man.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't, unfortunately, certainly not in a public meeting. Just know, I mean, we are having a lot of conversations behind the scenes. And I know that doesn't do it. That's not the card. That's not what you're looking for. But we are having a lot of conversations behind the scenes to get some of this unstuck.
Adam, I heard from, it's public information, but that other counties around us are doing a great job of with their secure track facilities and programs. Is there any liaisons coming into our county to help? Is there even to go as far as to maybe for a minute suspend what we know that the board approved these specific facilities, and even talk about maybe transferring to other counties? I'm just thinking maybe I shouldn't be playing outside the box here because these two facilities have been approved by the board. But I'm just thinking, are the conversations strictly about how to tackle what we have now, or is there something else that is potentially be a surprise for us down the line?
So,
yeah, please.
You know, what I will say, Chair Carrillo, is we're trying to find all the ways possible to provide as much programming and services that we can at Barry J. We're trying to make even slight adjustments to status quo, taking a look at you know, other vacant buildings outside of the compound. We've taken a trip to San Bernardino, so I think and speaking with other counties, San Bernardino has done a really good job. We went to go see it. They've done a really good job creating their program. It's a different landscape in terms of a lot of different reasons. What we also understand is that most, if not all, other counties are using juvenile halls for this population. And so we've had some conversation with, I think it's the Office of Youth Community Restoration, OYCR. So we've had some conversation with them. They will be, Chair Carrillo, to answer your question, they will be kind of the ongoing technical assistance and support once DJJ is officially done July 1. So we've already had some conversations with them. One of the young people who's working for them as part of their team is somebody who has some lived experience and I think did spend some time in a DJJ facility. And so we've met with them once and have had a couple more ongoing conversations with them. They've offered to provide some technical assistance moving forward. But I think all counties are in a similar situation. The difference here obviously is, you know, our population is always going to be bigger in LA, but we've taken notes from San Bernardino. So the training curriculum that they've infused is something that we've looked very closely at, and we've borrowed from it as we build our training. Quite honestly, politically, it's very different. Their relationship with their labor union is very different. And so it's hard to compare too much, but there are some programmatic things that we're looking at. And we've also, in our conversation with DJJ, there's a couple of programmatic things that are really interesting that we're likely to adopt around sex offender treatment and some other things like that.
Thank you, Adam. Any other hands? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, thanks everyone. We're gonna move on now to our next item. Okay, item number, I think it's 6 at this point. We will hear updates from Executive Director Wendy Julian on the POC's progress towards completing its 2022 strategic goals outlined in the POC's 2022 strategic operating plan. Wendy,
Thank you,
share
Chair
your
Carrillo.
updates.
And I'll be quick with this update. I want to give an update on the work of the staff and the subcommittees on moving toward these goals. One of those is on inspections, and I wanted to let you all know that we have formally begun the calendar year 2022 inspections. As you heard a couple months ago, we did pre-inspections at both Central and Kilpatrick, given the importance of those two facilities with the issues we've been talking about today. But we've now begun the regular process by which we'll be doing those inspections, completed an inspection at Dorothy Kirby. There was to be an inspection at Camp Rocky last week, which was postponed due to COVID quarantine and in the effort of safety for the kids most in particular, but also staff and POC. So we will reschedule that and then have inspections scheduled at 4 sites in August. And we'll look forward to reporting back on those with you all. We have made significant progress in the programs and services area in a couple of things. One is on something that we've talked about today around programming, in understanding the community-based organizations and other county providers who are providing programming within the facilities. And Erica has had an opportunity to lead that effort, work directly with Chief Fletcher and others within the department on learning more about the programs that are currently being offered. We're looking forward to moving that along to including programs being offered to field services and also having continued conversations about how community-based organizations can better partner with probation, contract with probation, provide services to youth in the facilities and youth and adults on field probation. We also have made progress since our last meeting on the issues of electronic monitoring and pretrial services, as was ordered by this commission. We've had a couple of productive meetings with commissioners and with probation and advocates to learn more about the population who are on ankle monitors and what the moves forward can be in terms of thinking about ensuring as an overall picture that electronic monitoring is in fact used in our county as an alternative to incarceration rather than an expansion or net widening of youth and adults who wouldn't otherwise be incarcerated. On that same note, we're continuing to work on the board's initiatives related to maintaining the low population of all youth, and also in particular girls and gender expansive youth decarceration. We are working directly with the Public Defender's Office and the Youth Justice Work Group on gender responsiveness to address the board motion around decarceration. We're pleased to announce, as many of you know, that the TMDTs, the Transitional Multidisciplinary Team meetings, have begun around girls' decarceration and ensuring that they are effective and that everyone is pulling in the same direction. I will say, please take a look at the statistics that are available, linked to the agenda. There has been this word means something, I know, and I'm going to say it anyway, a significant uptick in the population at the juvenile halls. There has not been a corresponding uptick in the population at the camps, which I think is important to recognize. In fact, the camp population remains very low, approximately 90. It's been under 100. However, the population at the camps has increased pretty significantly over the past couple of months. The POC staff is working directly on finding out from the Public Defender's Office, the DA's office, and probation about the causes of that, which are related to some community-related causes, related to some issues around the decisions around fitness hearings and whether youth waive fitness hearings, stay in the juvenile system rather than risk going into the adult system, and other issues that are impacting increased populations. As you'll see on the charts that Dr. Gongora and Jennifer Ochoa Garcia put together, that uptick is all in the predisposition youth at the halls. Finally, I want to give an update on data. I think it has become very clear over the last year and a half that the most important role of the Probation Oversight Commission is shining a light on the probation department and supporting and collaborating with the department and sharing information about what the department's doing, what's working, what's not working, and how to move forward. So we are very close to having our memorandum of understanding signed with probation. We've actually worked through all the details and are just getting some logistical things completed. Also have within that MOU the ability for the Probation Oversight Commission to share a number of items of what I would call raw data, which is just the basic data of who probation is serving and what those populations look like. So that is the big update in terms of Probation Oversight Commission's data work and how we're working on our operational plan, is that we have decided we're doing a two-pronged process, a short-term and long-term process, with the first prong, the short-term goal, being the continued sharing of the actual data from the probation department. So probation sends us their ProbeStat quarterly report. They send us their population statistics. They send us placement information, lots of interesting information about the services that are being provided. And we will provide that information to the public without filtering. So like with the population statistics, we put them into a graph, but it's all exactly the same information that probation provides. That's the short-term goal until probation is ready and able to provide that access to that data themselves, which I will report we are also working with Adam and his team on, and they've made pretty significant progress in that direction. So the Probation Oversight Commission will very gladly stop sharing that data as soon as probation is sharing it themselves. In that case, the role of the data and research of the Probation Oversight Commission will shift into the longer term goal, which is providing trends, analysis, research, information about best practices, information about what other jurisdictions do. And I have discussed, this is part of my quarterly meetings with the Board of Supervisors to talk about this prerogative and continue on our transparency and accountability methodology with the department. I just wanted to say one other thing about OC spray. For those of you who are paying very close attention, the department asked and we agreed to extend the OC spray elimination report backs to the 20th of each month instead of the 15th. So that changes which meeting we'll be presenting it at. And we'll have our next report as of July 20th. So you'll see it at the July 28th meeting. That is the extent of my report, Chair Carrillo, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wendy. Before you do, is there any live or written public comments for this item?
We don't have any written public comment on this item, and I don't see any hands raised. If anybody wants to make public comment on this item, you're welcome to raise your hand, but do it fast because I'm going to turn it back over. Okay, no public comment.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, any comments, questions? Same language. Do it now because I'm gonna move on. Well, I'm sure I'm gonna say what everyone is thinking, Wendy. Thank you so much for all the work you do. I see a couple commissioners smiling, and not only you, obviously, but your staff, our staff, who make us look so good. And I know you're on vacation, Wendy. Welcome back. You look very refreshed and on point as always. I think I'm done with this topic. We're going to move on to our next topic, item, I should say. And that is, are there any matters not posted on this agenda to discuss or to place on future meetings, agendas for action? And that's to the commissioners along with staff. And I'm going to look over. I have one to point out, but prior to that, let me see if anyone else, okay, not seeing any. I will, okay, so I will take this moment to, as most of you know, there has been much attention and community concern about the tragic killing of 2 El Monte police officers last month, allegedly by a man who was on probation. At the request of Supervisor Solis and because of our own interest in this topic, the POC will ask the department to answer some questions at our next meeting on this subject. In the meantime, our hearts go out to the families of those officers and the whole community of El Monte. That will be a very interesting meeting, and I'm looking forward to hearing the chief and other representatives from probation answer some of our questions. In the meantime, I will move on to our next agenda item, which is number 8, which is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, please facilitate this public comment.
Thank you. Janae, I don't believe we had any pre-registered public comment on this item. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. So we'll start with Emily Wood. Emily, we're going to unmute you, and then I think you have to unmute yourself. And if you'd like to give public comment, please use the raise your hand function or dial *3 from your phone. Go ahead, Emily, you can begin.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. I'm sorry I wasn't able to listen to the whole meeting. But I wanted to just make sure that an obvious issue is being raised because I actually work at the juvenile halls, and there is concern about the kids and staff from Central being moved to Barry J again if the BSCC audit is not approved later this month. And I just wanted to sort of point out what I think should be an obvious flaw in the report that I know you guys don't get to, you guys don't decide what BSCC does, but maybe in determining how this is handled, you guys can help with, is that, Central was found non-compliant with safety checks based on video footage. And that video footage is available at Central and is not available on most of the Sylmar Barry J units. And so I think that it would be really hasty to think that the answer to this problem would be moving kids back and forth again, which was extremely disruptive and resulted in a lot of problems for kids and staff, some of which were dangerous for everyone involved. You know, that if this is the issue, that we're catching things at Central because we have cameras at Central, it actually suggests that we need to have more of our kids and staff at Central where we have that technology and we know that we can have the oversight that the kids deserve. So that's my only comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have call-in user number 35. That you don't have a phone number, so we're just going to unmute you, and I hope you know who you are. I think you have to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourself.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Director Julian. This is Mel Bailey. I am a supervisor with the LA County Probation Department at the East San Fernando Valley area office over the Probation Information Center, and I was calling in. I wanted to formally invite you all. We are hosting a community resource fair and vaccination drive on July 27th. And just wanted to invite everybody. It's from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. A plethora of services from housing to education to mental health, child care support, animal services, you name it, and we're going to have it. If you need any more information offline, my phone number is area code 310-365-6338. It is on our website. I can send it to you, and it will be at the East San Fernando Valley area office parking lot outside at 14414 Delano Street, Van Nuys. Again, 310-365-6338 if you have any questions. And please feel free, everyone, come out, especially commissioners. Please do come out. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. We have one more call-in user, number 47. Your number starts with 661. I'm gonna unmute you, and you can dial *6 on your phone. You're ready to go.
Hey, good afternoon. Field Deputy Probation Officer calling in again, and this is in regards to the earlier topic of staffing and hiring more staff for the juvenile halls. My experience is you can hire 1,000 DSOs. It's not going to change anything. Right now, the culture in the juvenile halls, the staff does not feel safe. The youth are out of control. They're challenging staff at every corner. Every time you give them instructions, they're telling you that it's not your job to do anything, that they can do whatever they want to do. And so when you try to structure them and get them in line, their behavior escalates, and it gets to the point where it's contentious and physicality occurs. Second on that motion is, I know the Board of Supervisors has talked about turning away or eliminating pepper spray. That's going to be a grave mistake. I know that there's pros and cons for pepper spray. However, when OC warnings are given for these youth in juvenile hall, you get compliance. If you don't have OC and you don't give a pepper spray warning, you don't get compliance. It's that simple. Staff's going to continue to get hurt. Once they put hands on kids, kids are going to continue to get hurt. And this is not the solution to our staffing shortages, is hiring more staff. On another note, the staffing requirements to hire DSOs, GSNs as DPOs is so high, it's at the same criteria that the LA County Sheriff's Department has, as well as LAPD. The majority of the staff that are going through the academies that have bachelor degrees or AA degrees that pass all these hoops that you have to jump through to get hired by probation are also in background process with sheriffs and LAPD. So they come to probation, they're here for a couple months, the sheriffs call them up, go to their academy, LAPD, they're gone. We're just spinning our wheels. We're spending a lot of time and energy to hire qualified people that I think are overqualified, and we're not able to keep any retention.
Thank you for joining us today. And that is the end of public comment. Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for all your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media at LA County POC. Also subscribe to our new YouTube channel by searching Probation Oversight Commission and clicking subscribe. To receive reminders about our upcoming meetings, visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov. to subscribe to our email listing. It is now 2:22 p.m. and I adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. Have a great day.
Thank you.